Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This month I'm talking about child ballads, as in ballads collected by folklorist Francis James Child, and today I'm going to be talking about a really interesting trend in some of these ballads, where there are two people who die and they're buried separately, but plants on their graves grow together and intertwine and form a true lover's knot. It's a very specific thing that happens in a lot of ballads, so let's look at a few examples and talk about what's going on here. Starting off with Child Ballad 73, Lord Thomas and Fair Annette. Sometimes her name is Annie, sometimes it's Eleanor, sometimes his is William, but in all the variants the story goes something like this. Thomas is in love with Annie, but he can't marry her because she doesn't have enough money. So he marries this other girl instead. Sometimes he asks his family for advice and everybody gives him the advice to marry the girl who has the money, except for his sister who says, yeah, no, marry the girl you actually like. He ignores his sister's advice if that's the case. He marries for money, and he invites Annie, Annette, Eleanor, whoever, to his wedding. She goes, and he shows strong preference for her over the woman that he's marrying in ways that are just, totally undeniable. The woman he's marrying obviously is not thrilled. She pulls out a knife. She kills Annie. He kills her. He kills himself. And I'm sure the sister who told him not to marry for money is just going, oh my goodness, no, really? Anyway, what happens in a lot of versions of this ballad is that a birch tree from one of their graves and a briar from the other eventually grow together. Number 74, Fair Margaret and Sweet William, is very similar. It doesn't involve all of the murdering, but Fair Margaret's ghost shows up on Sweet William's wedding night to tell him that she has died, and he actually liked Margaret better than the woman that he married, so he's obviously very upset about that. And when they die, when he dies as well, they're buried separately, but a rose from her grave and a briar from his grow until they connect, and then form a true lover's knot where they meet. In some versions it's said that a clerk who works for the church eventually comes and cuts it down, but in some versions it remains there and people look at it and are like, oh, they were in love. Number 75 is called Lord Lovell. Lord Lovell is in love with a lady. Her name is either Ouncebelle, Unzabelle, or Nancy Bell. He says that he's going away to Scotland, and she's like, well, don't be away too long, but of course he's away for pretty long. Eventually he returns to London and he finds out that while he was away, she died. And when he dies as well, they're buried separately, but I think you're getting a pattern here. Plants from their graves, in this case, a rose or a birch for her and a briar for him, grow and eventually connect and form a true lover's knot where they meet. Number 84 is actually a pretty well-known one, Barbara Allen. So Barbara is not in love with her suitor, but he's in love with her and he's wasting away from unrequited love. But she laughs and she tells him that he'll never win her heart. And then when he dies, she all of a sudden feels very guilty about that. And so then she dies as well. And in a lot of versions, that's where it ends. But in some, they're buried separately. A rose from one grave and a briar from the other eventually grow together. And where they meet, they form a true lover's knot. Now, one thing that I think is really interesting about Barbara Allen is that unlike the others on this list, the two people were not mutually in love with each other while they were alive. The whole time she was rejecting him, and she only came to regret it after he was already dead. Even then, it's not really implied that she feels any love for him, only that she regrets the fact that he died and that she was cruel to him. So the true lover's knot thing feels a little bit out of place. And actually, when I looked up the original ballads recorded by Francis James Child, I did not find the true lover's knot in Barbara Allen. But it is very popular in modern renditions of the song. And then finally, number 85, Lady Alice. So this is about a woman named Alice or Anna who sees a funeral procession outside her window and asks who the person being buried is. Turns out it's her lover. And when she hears that, she says that her funeral will be the next day. They're buried on opposite sides of the graveyard. One is on the east side and one is on the west side. However, in some versions, a plant grows from one of their graves to the other. And then either a priest prings it back or a gust of wind destroys it. And then in one version they get the rose from her grave and the briar from his, growing together and forming a true lover's knot. So it's a common thing that happens in very similar ways across these different ballads. Obviously the two plants were meant to represent the lovers, and the fact that they form a true lover's knot represents that their love is more powerful than death. And I would also say more powerful than the society not recognizing how important they were to each other. Because of course if they were husband and wife, they would have been buried together side by side. But all of these unmarried lovers, or lovers where the guy is married to someone else, I mean, even nowadays you wouldn't be buried next to the person you had an affair with. So I think what these songs are getting at is that the love these couples felt for each other, even though they weren't legally married, was not something that they would want people to be able to forget. And therefore, in the versions where the plants are growing together and forming the true lover's knot, but then a priest working for the church trims it away, or the wind blows it away, or whatever, it comes across as tragic. Because even though it was just a plant growing there, what it represented was important. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you liked it and you want to see more like this, be sure to subscribe. I post new videos on Mondays and Thursdays.